Double game week 25 is just around the corner, and ahead of that, here are some players to buy and avoid. Now, I'm sure pretty much everyone watching this video is well aware of the double game week we've got coming up in 25. It involves Liverpool and Aston Villa. Liverpool playing Wolves at home and then Aston Villa away. And Villa playing Ipswich at home and then Liverpool at home. To start this video though, I'm not actually going to focus on Liverpool and Aston Villa players. I'm going to look at a team that have a single game week, but I think on certainly some regards, their players, particularly considering their price, can compete with some of these double game week assets. And that team I'm thinking of is Bournemouth. For me, at the moment for Bournemouth, there are two absolutely outstanding attacking assets. That's Antoine Semenyo and Justin Kluivert. I've put a little head-to-head comparison between the two players here. And I think there isn't really a whole lot to separate them, in my personal opinion. The one big separator, I think, is penalties. Justin Kluivert being the penalty taker for Bournemouth. Semenyo, obviously not. He did take one. I'll tell you what, he took a very good penalty against Everton in the FA Cup at the weekend. And I don't necessarily think that's going to mean that he's immediately going to start taking penalties when Kluivert's back in the team. Obviously, Kluivert didn't start that game. But I do think it means if Kluivert misses a penalty, there is a very good chance that Semenyo could start taking them for Bournemouth. Just my opinion there, but something to bear in mind. Now, I would personally, in my personal opinion, say that Kluivert is better than Semenyo because I always like to back penalty takers, but I think the argument for Semenyo is that he's more dangerous from open play than Kluivert is. The XG, Kluivert scoring as many penalties as he has this season, the XG differential there being about, 1.5 between the two. Obviously, Kluivert has scored more than 1.5 penalties this season, so it suggests that he is... Semenyo is probably more dangerous from open play. You can see there on the shots and shots on target stats, although it does suggest Semenyo could do a bit better with the shooting. He's taken nearly double the shots that Kluivert has and nearly double the shots in the box as well. So if you want, I'd say safety and security because he's the penalty taker, go for Kluivert. If you want potential upside in the fact that he's more dangerous from open play, go for Semenyo. It's not just two attacking assets that I'd be interested in from Bournemouth, though. Since December, they have conceded the second fewest goals in the league, just behind Arsenal. So they're also really good from a defensive point of view. And I'd say right now, in the game, in FPL, there are two outstanding defenders you can pick from. That's Kerkez and Howson. And on the face of it, you'd think Kerkez, well, he's way better because he's a fullback and he's more attacking. But when you actually look at their last 10 appearances since Howson got into that Bournemouth team after the Senesi injury, the stats between the two from an attacking perspective, well, they're actually really similar. Kerkez has got a goal and assist in those 10 games, and Howson has just got the goal. He hasn't got an assist. But with his set piece, the danger that he poses from set pieces, Howson, he's actually taken more shots than Kerkez has. And I would actually say, if money was no object, I probably would go for Kerkez, just because he's a fullback, a more attacking position naturally, and he does get forward more than Howson does. But if I needed to save the cash, or I didn't have quite the budget, or just in general I wanted to save the cash, I think Howson, pound for pound, is probably the better asset because attacking wise, they're pretty similar. And he's a full $500,000 cheaper in the game. And I look at those next three fixtures, based on their current defensive form and just how good they've been at the back. Southampton away, there's a possible clean sheet there. Wolves at home, there's a possible clean sheet there. And same with Brighton as well. Brighton are very hit and miss at the moment in the Premier League. Only seems that they're good against Man United from my mind. But anyway, they did just beat Chelsea in the Cup as well, to be fair. So that's probably a bit of disrespect to Brighton. But I do think Bournemouth could win all those games. I do think they have a chance of clean sheet. So Semenyo, Kluivert, Kerkez and Howson would be my top targets from Bournemouth. Now, I'm going to talk about Aston Villa because I think going into Game Week 25, they're the most interesting team to talk about out of the two doublers. Right? You've got Liverpool, but because they've already doubled in Game Week 24, most people are going to be tripled up in some way on Liverpool. I'll cover Liverpool at the end if you're interested in maybe chopping and changing your Liverpool assets or need to get one more in. But I think for this particular buy and avoid video, more important to talk about the Villa assets because people probably not tripled up on Aston Villa. I've done here a little tier list, a sort of basic tier list of where I think the Villa assets sit. I think the genuinely good pickable Villa assets are Ollie Watkins, should he be confirmed fit, Morgan Rogers, and obviously Unai Emery as an assistant manager. The Ipswich game at home is kind of I wouldn't say a complete banker, but it's a good opportunity for him to get the results points and maybe keep a clean sheet, score some goals. And then the Liverpool game is similar to the logic for picking David Moyes in Gameweek 24. The Liverpool game provides a chance of getting table bonus, and it wouldn't be, I don't know, it wouldn't be the most outrageous thing to see Aston Villa beating Liverpool. I just don't think it would. So I think for me, those are the three Villa assets I'd be really interested in possibly picking. Outside of that, I wouldn't pick anyone, but I do think there are players that you could pick, being Luca Dean, Emiliano Martinez goalkeeper, and Ezri Konsa. Luca Dean is probably the most attacking Aston Villa defender that they have. Plays obviously at left back, bombs along from that left back position. And he also takes, I believe, some corners and crossing position free kicks. And he's got a good free kick shot on him as well. So I think of all of the Aston Villa defenders, he probably provides the most goal threat. But on the counter to that, and it's a similar point, I guess, for Martinez and Konsa, I personally don't really rate the Aston Villa defence at all. I don't think they're going to keep a clean sheet in that Liverpool game. So it's basically, if you're counting defenders, it's almost like you should consider it just to be a single game week because that Liverpool game, they're probably not keeping a clean sheet. And it's just I think you'd be grateful if they didn't get minus points, the defenders in that game, to be completely honest with you. So that kind of, for me, rules out Martinez and Konsa just because I don't really think they're going to be all that good defensively. And even in that Ipswich game, I feel like Ipswich could score. So in reality, I'd say it's probably Luca Dean is the only one you could pick from that Villa defence because of his attacking upside. So yeah, for me, the good players being Rogers, Watkins and Emery. Well, Emery not being a player, of course. And then maybe Luca Dean at a stretch. And what I wanted to talk about next, obviously people bringing in Ollie Watkins, you're probably looking at potentially taking out Isak for him. Isak is, I believe now, the most popular forward in the game. And I would imagine most people watching this video have Isak in their team. If you don't have Isak in your team, by the way, I'd be really interested to hear about that in the comments. And it's a question, really, I think, that will plague most FPL managers going into Gameweek 25, is do you sell Isak in order to get Watkins in your team? And I think there is some justification for doing that, right? Obviously, Ollie Watkins, at least over the next 3 game weeks, has 4 games to Isak's 3. And you could make an argument that the next 3 fixtures for Isak are actually pretty tough. You know, Man City at the Etihad, Nottingham Forest, who have been absolutely outstanding defensively in the league this season, and then Liverpool. You know, 3 of, well, maybe not Man City, but 2 of the best defences in the league this season. However, on the counter to that, looking at Game Week 25 in isolation, I actually think the Man City fixture is one I'd want to target at the moment. I think from an attacking perspective, Man City are still pretty decent. I back them to score against Newcastle. But I think how they're performing defensively means that they are genuinely a team to target for attacking assets. So you've got Isak playing a team you want to target, who is probably, I don't think actually it's a case of probably, is undoubtedly a better long-term option than Ollie Watkins is. So you've got Isak versus Man City, and then you've got Ollie Watkins against Ipswich and Liverpool. And then obviously, if you do that, you don't have Isak in your team. For me, I think the comparison between the 2 players is so close that it's not worth making a transfer, particularly to sell Isak for Watkins. So, you know, speaking about Isak to Watkins, for me, the answer would be I wouldn't do it. If I wanted to bring Watkins into my team, I would only do it if I could afford to do it by taking out another forward. And another point of contention as well will be Morgan Rogers versus a Bournemouth midfielder. Now, I said I probably back Justin Kluivert as my favourite Bournemouth midfielder. So there's another debate going on here as well. It's whether you bring in, if you don't have him already, whether you bring in Morgan Rogers, considering he's got a double in 25, or do you bring in Kluivert, considering he is long term, probably a better option than Rodgers. And he has a really, really strong fixture in Southampton away. It's not a double game week, but it's probably, apart from Southampton at home, the best fixture you could possibly get. And in my mind, based on his recent performances as well in the Premier League, I know he got a hat-trick in the Champions League, didn't he? So it's not just, I'm thinking quite Premier League bias here. But his last 3 games in the Premier League, Ollie Watkins has got no goals, no assists, picked up 3 yellow cards. And in each of those 3 games, I'm pretty sure he's accumulated like 0.1 XGI, expected goal involvement, or less. So that's pretty woeful, to be honest. Whereas Justin Kluivert, as we know, and Bournemouth have been in sensational form. And I would almost suggest that the 3 fixtures that Bournemouth have are almost better than the 4 fixtures that Aston Villa have, just with the form that Bournemouth are in. I know it sounds absolutely crazy. And when you compare the stats between the 2 players, it's not even really a comparison. Kluivert's on penalties. He's got 11 goals compared to Rodgers' 6. Assists are pretty similar. He's taking more shots, got more XG. The only way that Rodgers beats him is in terms of expected assists. So for me, if I was looking to bring in a midfielder for Game Week 25 and I didn't have Rodgers or Kluivert, I think I'd rank Kluivert ahead of Rodgers. And another point around Aston Villa, just in general, I covered this on my my transfer plans video about my team, is the Villa signings. And I don't see a way in which they don't in some way impact the 2 Aston Villa players I think are pickable from an outfield perspective in Watkins and Rodgers. Rashford has been given the number 9 shirt for Aston Villa. Now, I don't think Rashford is a centre forward, but he can play there. And I think with Ollie Watkins, if he is back for Game Week 25, he is going to be returning from injury. And I don't necessarily think he's going to play 90 minutes in both games. So I think his minutes are possibly going to be shared with Marcus Rashford. I think, providing he's done okay in training, I think Rashford's going to get some minutes. But he won't get minutes in a... By the way, I don't think any of these 3 players are pickable before we get into it. But I do think Watkins could potentially share minutes with Rashford. And then you've got Rodgers, Rodgers is competing with so many Villa attacking players. So obviously, I guess Rashford could potentially take his spot. Marco Asensio, Marlon, Jacob Ramsey, Barkley, Leon Bailey. There are so many players that could potentially take Rodgers' spot as well, that bringing Rodgers into my team, how many minutes is he realistically going to get in double game week 25 as well? Just a question. And also, by the way, I was talking about these 3 new Villa signings not really being worth picking in FPL. You look at the stats of Rashford and Malin, they're pretty pants, to be honest. 0.35 XGI per 90 for Rashford at Man United in the Prem this season. For Dortmund, Marlin's played 3 or 4 games now in the Premier League, not got a single attacking return for Villa yet. And he put up 0.29 XGI per 90 for Dortmund. So the numbers were not so great. But Marco Asensio, on the other hand, he's on 1.21 XGI per 90 for PSG. That's genuinely on a level with what Salah is doing this season, albeit it's in League One, obviously a lower level league than the Premier League. And he didn't start all the games for PSG. It just seems, I don't know, I'm looking very face value at these stats, but it does seem strange that PSG are loaning out a player that got more than 1 goal or assist, expected goal or assist per 90 in the time that he played for them. So of the 3, the most interesting for me at the moment, based on the stats they've put up this season, is Marco Asensio. But in general, I don't think you can pick any of these. And just rounding off the video, I'm going to talk about Liverpool players. This might be a bit boring. If you've already got 3 Liverpool players, you're probably not all that interested in getting rid of them. But if you don't, or for whatever reason you're thinking of chopping and changing them around, I think there are 6 Liverpool players that are genuinely pickable going into Game Week 25. You've got Salah, Arne Slot, obviously, as an assistant manager, Van Dijk, Trent, Konate, and Gakpo. I'd say, obviously, Salah is my number 1 Liverpool asset. I'd actually probably have Arne Slot as my second favourite Liverpool asset, but it's a little bit nuanced as to whether you should pick him, because I would say you're probably better off having 3 outfield Liverpool players and going for Unai Emery as your assistant manager, rather than 3 Liverpool assets that include Slot, if that makes sense. I think Van Dijk's a great option. Showed a little bit of goal threat, obviously, in the FA Cup just gone against Tottenham. Trent is by far and away, I think, the best defender for Liverpool, but the jury's out as to whether he's going to be fit for Game Week 25. We'll obviously get some info. We're going to have the Merseyside derby in Game Week 24. So if he's fit and starting in that one, we have a good idea that he's fit and ready to go in Game Week 25. So it's obviously a bit of info to go from that one. I like Konate as well. I just put him below Van Dijk and Trent personally. And then Gakpo. I would probably put Gakpo as my third or fourth favourite Liverpool asset, just because of outside of Salah and Liverpool just being an insanely good team from a goal scoring perspective. You know, he's the best of the rest in terms of attackers at the moment. He's in great form. Arnie Slot obviously really likes the guy, and his minutes seem quite strong. So yeah, that's kind of my view on Liverpool assets. Didn't want to spend too long on it because most people got them. All right then, well that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. Bit of chat there just around general players to buy and avoid ahead of Game Week 25. Usually I make this video reacting almost instantaneously to the previous game week, but I thought this one would be quite good talking. This is mostly my opinion on players that people should be targeting this week, which is mainly players with a double game week or ones that play for Bournemouth targeting that Southampton fixture. So that's kind of my view of the general. I think that'll probably play out that way in FPL, to be honest. The most popular players in will be Bournemouth assets, I think, and obviously Liverpool and Aston Villa players. So if you enjoyed the video, please leave me a like rate and let me know in the comments if there's any other players that you would look to buy and avoid. I'm just thinking of one now in Ouattara of Bournemouth. I think recent form proves he's a good option, but I just trust Semenyo and Kluivert ahead of them just with the minutes and the appearances they put up so far this season. And yeah, if you haven't already and you want to see more content from me, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the Golden Goal channel. There should be a button just there on your screen. All right, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in my next video.